Texas baseball keeps digging themselves into a deeper hole. Why the latest loss could knock them out of the postseason entirely, and the Western Conference playoffs have shifted focus from basketball to the referees. All this and more on College Crossfire.
Yes, we'll get it. Always enthusiastic, unbelievable, hard-nosed.
All right, let me explain why Aaron Judge is getting it. You can boo me all you want.
I knew Texas was going to win, and then one of the Texas team was going to lose.
Hammy. I don't like the Hammy.
Hey, who does?
I don't know.
This is all chaos.
Welcome into College Crossfire. Thank you for being here with us tonight. I'm your host, Jonathan Polasic. We've got a very special show for you tonight. It's the College Crossfire Alumni Show. So why don't we go ahead and meet our panelists. Up first, we have Jordan Cannon, an associate producer at Longhorn Network. Jordan, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Up next, we have Jeff Barker, the weekend sports anchor at KI here in Austin. Jeff, how you feeling?
I'll be honest, I just watched that intro, and I'm a little bit hurt, Jonathan. I'm
Why
a
is
little
that?
bit hurt that I've officially been phased out of the intro video. When I was here last year and Mark was hosting, I was in.
You were still there?
I was in video, man.
You're still there?
But,
Is
you know,
Mark Skull watching?
I don't know if Mark's watching. Maybe.
I'm
We
just
gotta tell him to tune
saying,
in.
you know, -1. You're starting out -1.
I'm starting out -1.
Yeah.
This is my show. I don't think
Yeah.
you can do that. This is my show now. So I don't think that can happen. And
Fair
then
enough.
last but certainly not least, we have Sean Mapes. Not an alum, but he's getting there. Just a couple more weeks.
Close enough.
How you doing, Sean?
Doing great. Glad to be on the alumni show. As a current student, I feel like it's a pretty rare honor, and I'm honored by it.
It's good practice.
You should be. You should be.
Yeah, this is intimidating because we can't lose the alumni show.
Oh, no, you
I
certainly
agree.
can't.
Student,
Yeah.
so.
That shouldn't happen.
That's on him.
It is.
Yeah.
We'll see what
Just
happens.
saying.
You know what? Glad to have you all on tonight, so let's just jump on in. Texas baseball finally ended its losing streak with a 10-2 beatdown of West Virginia on Sunday. However, Texas only took 1 of 3 from the Mountaineers. Texas had the opportunity to win the first 2 games as well, but ultimately faltered down the stretch. So what's your biggest takeaway from this series against West Virginia? Start with Jordan.
My biggest takeaway is just a little bit of frustration because they're getting excellent starts from Bryce Elder, Blair Henley, and even Ty Madden on Sunday. And luckily, with Madden and Bokey, they were able to pull it off on Sunday. But Bryce Elder shouldn't go 7 2/3 innings with 13 strikeouts and still that game be a loss. Same deal with Henley. Like it's just frustrating watching how these games keep playing out, and it's always something different. It's never the same. Oh, the bullpen fell apart, or oh, there weren't any bats. It's always something different, and it was the same kind of story this weekend. So it's just frustrating and a little disheartening.
Yeah, Bryce Elder, he went 7 innings of no-hit baseball, and to see him lose that, and then ultimately the game was a heartbreaker for Texas fans everywhere. Jeff, what do you think?
I mean, big picture, I think we're saying that this was a bit of a mirage. Some of those games that they won earlier in the year against really, really good programs like LSU and you know, where is that team that swept LSU? That's the team that needs to come out now. And I think the biggest thing we're seeing right now is, as Jordan mentioned, you get some really good starts from guys like Elder. Even Henley will turn in some good starts. Got a great one from Ty Madden, obviously going to win. But in the losses, they can't even turn that into anything. You know, maybe the bats aren't coming alive at the right times. It just seems like everything that went right for them to kind of steal some games they maybe had no business winning earlier in the season isn't going right now. And I would say other biggest takeaway is, again, the bullpen. They just need guys to come in and close games, and it looks like Mateo Bokey could be a guy that could come in and do that potentially.
Yeah, Bokey's probably been the most consistent player out of the pen. Thought that was supposed to be Cole Quintanilla. He's struggled a little bit, especially as of late, but Bokey's been that stabilizing force in an otherwise shaky bullpen this year. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, for sure it's been definitely a disappointing season, especially coming off a trip to Omaha last year. You thought, you know, it's going to be a linear progression all the way up to the top. Obviously a step back this year, like both of them said, that it's always something different. It's kind of been the bullpen more than the other facets of the team, but definitely disappointing. You always keep waiting for the team to turn it around. You know, after getting swept by Oklahoma State, you're like, okay, that's the low point of the season now. You know, they're going to turn around, make a run at, you know, get into the postseason, but it's not looking that good, especially when you lose 2 out of 3 at home against West Virginia.
Well, yeah, you think the low point would be at Oklahoma State, but then Texas loses to Texas State in a midweek game, and then most recently Texas A&M Corpus Christi. I think that's probably the lowest point that
Yeah.
Texas can be at right now. So Jordan and Jeff, you're each starting off with 2 points. I think the pitching has been phenomenal, the starting pitching at least, but a lot of other things have contributed to Texas's downfall recently. And Sean, you're starting off with 1. So if
I thought I was
going,
going to say, Sean, you're starting off with 0.
not 0,
Not
starting
getting
off with
shut
1.
out. Not getting shut out.
No shutouts today. If going 1 and 2 this weekend wasn't bad enough, Texas also dropped another midweek game. Like I said, this time to Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Texas has really struggled during these midweek games all year, so just how devastating are these midweek losses? And now y'all can jump in at any time.
I think we're seeing that the pitching staff is as depleted, or at least as young and inexperienced. It seems like they have a lot of arms. I guess depleted, probably not the right word. A lot of volume in there. You have a lot of young arms, but they need seasoning. I mean, they need games like this, and you would hope that even in games they struggle, like these midweek games, that maybe they would find a way to win them. And I think you can suffer maybe 2 to 3 of these, but once you get to the 4th, I think this is the 4th bad midweek loss for Texas so far, then it starts hurting the RPI. Then you add in, you can't win a conference series, and then it's like, well, you're just not winning games at all.
Coach
Tough.
Pierce on his own has said he has this formula, certain variables on the weekends and especially on Sundays, but you have to win 90% of your midweek games. Texas has won a little over 46% right now, so even by
Not great.
his own philosophy and formula, those are devastating. Going 6 and 7 in midweek games is devastating.
And it's one thing to lose midweek games if they're to Arkansas or A&M, but then you drop games to Incarnate Word, A&M Corpus Christi, Texas State. That's a bigger
Team's
problem.
called the Islanders.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
The
You know,
Sea Aggies.
last year.
Is that what they call them?
That's what I call them.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that a lot better.
Yeah, last year they went 11-3 in midweek games. Not to toot my horn, but I went back and counted by hand, broke out pen and paper. Again, not asking for credit.
Advocate.
But yeah, and the 3 losses, there are 2 against Arkansas and 1 against A&M. I think if this team was doing that, none of us would be too alarmed. But it's the fact they're losing to satellite schools like Texas A&M, Corpus Christi, losing to Texas State, teams that they should, at least have just more talent to just bulldoze them and just out-talent them, but they can't, and I think that's really the kind of biggest symbol of how disappointing the season's been.
Yeah, you would think that Texas would just be able to come in, not even play a B game. They could play a C game and come in and just win. Not the case this year. They're down 2 major players in Petrinsky and Hamilton. That hasn't helped their cause, and it's shown this year. So, Jordan, you're moving on with 3 points. Jeff and Sean each with 2. So, Texas, I'm sorry. Texas is not currently projected to make it to regionals this year. But do you think that Texas can still save this season? And if so, how would they do it?
Well, they do it by basically winning every game left on the schedule. That's probably the easiest way to do it. Just win, keep winning. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think. I think this season's kind of beyond saving. I think, it's not reasonable to ask them to win. I mean, last week we said that they need to win 2 out of 3 in every Big 12 series left to go over 500 in the Big 12 this season. Well, they just lost 2 out of 3 against
Well, they'd
West
still be
Virginia.
under 500, even if they won 2 out of 3.
Even worse. So yeah, I don't see them making the playoffs.
Jordan?
I lean more towards show up in the Big 12 tournament, which means you have to do well to make it to the Big 12 tournament. But you saw in 2014, they can do it. I think it's a long shot for them to make it to the postseason, but there's avenues. But I mean, it's going to have to be, lock in from here on out. So long shot, but I'm not saying it's impossible because we saw it in 2014.
Exactly. Jeff?
I think we were just talking about the midweek games. Can't drop any more of those. Got to pick up that win against Texas State next week. And then I think in conference play, if you either you have to win, if you're Texas, 5 of your next 6 conference games to close out the regular season, I think. I mean, whether that's a sweep at Kansas this weekend and then you take 2 or 3 against OU, you basically have to win 5 of those 6. And that's, like you guys have all said, that sounds like a pretty daunting task for a team that couldn't beat the TAMU Sea Aggies.
Well, I mean, it's just like Texas, as long as they get into the tournament, which they're competing with Kansas now at the bottom of the Big 12, if they can get by Kansas, get into the Big 12 tournament, maybe they can go on a run.
I meant 15, not 14, too, what I said earlier. I just realized I said
Okay. But as long as they can get into the Big 12 tournament, go on a run, maybe. I just don't see that happening this year, even though Texas should. take 2 or 3 from Kansas. I don't know if that's going to happen. Jordan, you're getting 1 point. Jeff 2. Sean 1. Jeff's happy now, so there we go. So David Pierce is in year 3 at Texas, and this will be his worst year by far record-wise. After finishing with 39 and 42 total wins the past 2 years, Texas can at most win 33 regular season games this year. So do you guys think that David Pierce, is he on the hot seat, or should he be at the very least?
Can someone zoom in on this eye roll, please? Because that is so silly. I get frustrated when I see this, just because how do you replace, you had veteran arms in the bullpen last year between Sawyer and Pijo and McGuire, and you replace my Golden Spikes winner, Cody Clemens. Like, how do you can't expect them to turn around and do that. And yes, this is probably not going even like remotely as well as anybody anticipated, even if you kept that in mind, but I still don't think you can turn around and fire a guy for a down year.
This is absurd. I mean, and this is what I always go back to with all of the Texas programs, the big 3, football, basketball, baseball. Like, what is the expectation? Like with football, I mean, I get it, it's more competitive and all that. You're not going to say, oh, playoff every year and all that. I'm a little worried to see if people want to fire David Pierce, what the expectations are going to be on Tom Herman this year. So I think with Pierce, I mean, it's absurd to say he's on the hot seat. Like Jordan mentioned, obviously, he went to Omaha last year, and I think you could make an argument he went to Omaha with a team that maybe not had no business, but kind of snuck into Omaha, and they showed that the way they played.
Halfway through that season, they were 500 halfway through the season.
I mean, they played
no
a
one
really
thought
tough
that.
schedule.
Yeah,
They were
like,
9-9.
Yeah.
But still.
They kind of caught a break in the Super Regionals, too, not facing Ole Miss, instead Tennessee Tech.
Yeah, exactly.
Although.
Totally agree. Yeah, they didn't have to go on the road,
Yeah.
and they had to come from behind. And again, look, you have to give them credit for doing those things last year when they did them, but still, they were in position to, probably not go to Omaha, basically. So it's absurd.
Yeah, it's definitely a case of, you kind of, you're a pleasant surprise the year before, so that raises expectations. And then if you don't meet those raised expectations, it was always going to be a little bit of a regression year, like you said. But then to have this kind of year, it sends the crazies of the fan base into a frenzy. Like you said, you see it in every sport. I mean, can you imagine if Texas football this year goes 7-5, something like that? Yeah, R.I.P. Tom Herman's mention.
What is the expectation?
Another facet to this too is you don't have David Hamilton and Michael McCann is catching every single game.
Yeah.
Like McCann gets no breaks. You don't have arguably your best, probably the guy that we would have said was the best player on the roster this year. He's not playing. Where do you think they'd be? I just think there's so many facets to think about with this season that it's, like you said, just absurd to consider.
And they're
firing
young.
David
I mean,
Pierce.
they're super young, like
so
we talked
young
about
team.
in the rotation. Crazy young.
That entire pitching staff is extremely young. Honestly,
Everybody.
I mean, even your ace is a sophomore in his first year as a starter.
Exactly. So I think it's completely unfair to say that David Pierce is on the hot seat. I agree with all of y'all. Y'all are each getting the point. I don't think that he's on the hot seat. Does not deserve to be.
Calm down,
there.
message boards.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll fight
So David Pierce, you're fine. That's it for now. When we return, a couple Longhorns had their names called in the NFL draft, and we'll discuss whether your favorite team won or lost the draft. Stick around.
I forgot this was sitting here.
Oh, was I supposed to go? Was I supposed to talk about my...
Don't ask me any questions.
Welcome back to College Crossfire. It's time for rapid fire. Let's go ahead and remind everybody of the score. We've got Jordan with 8, Jeff with 9, and Sean with 6. Everybody's changed into a jersey. Some fit a little bit better than others. I'm looking at you, Sean. Got a little bit of a smaller jersey.
Anytime I can represent Houston Rocket legend Carmelo Anthony.
There we go. There we go. Well, it's still anyone's game because in rapid fire, each question is worth 2 points, and you can jump in at any time. So the 2019 NFL Draft was held in Nashville, Tennessee, home of country music. Nashville did a great job hosting the draft, which got us thinking, what if Austin hosted the NFL Draft? Austin's a very unique city with lots of different things to do, but if there's one thing Austin is known for, it's being weird. So how would Austin showcase its weirdness if the draft came to town, or what would the city of Austin do to prepare for the draft?
If I was Roger Goodell, I know where I would have it. On the roof at Buckshot.
All right, there we go. There we go.
Every time a pick's announced, you have to go to the bar and consume an adult beverage with Roger Goodell so that we get to watch him 30 beverages deep, 31 beverages deep on the last pick.
Oh, that would be very interesting. Jordan,
Oh,
Sean?
man, it's making me uncomfy thinking of if we had the draft in Austin.
Yeah, all I'm
Like,
thinking about is the
I
traffic.
could drive anywhere. Yeah, you can drive
I'm thinking,
anywhere.
I'm thinking just put it on I-35 because that's where everyone's going to be anyway. I mean,
In the Mopac Express lane.
yeah, just when they call your name, just get out, honk your horn, and go back.
All right, I-35.
I have nothing better than that. I can't top that.
All right, well, neither can I. So, Sean, you're getting the 2 points. So, there we go. Rep the Carmelo. It's the off season for Texas women's basketball, but that doesn't mean the games stop. Texas women's basketball is sending 4 players to a USA Basketball 3-on-3 tournament. Charlie Collier, Joyner Holmes, Shug Sutton, and Audrey Warren will all make the trip. If the men's team were to send a group of 4, who would you choose to send, and why?
Well, you gotta send Jackson Hayes. You know,
Okay.
he's
Wait, from
the-
this year's
Yeah,
team
it's like,
only?
is it guys that, like,
We'll make it in.
Yeah, I was gonna say
any
since
team.
there's alumni.
any team
here.
ever?
Any-
PJ
I was-
Tucker, Kevin Durant, DJ Augustin, Tristan Thompson?
Yeah, I like PJ Tucker as my enforcer. I like Andrew Jones as my
A. Jones,
emotional
yeah.
leader. KD, and then
I
maybe
feel like
LaMarcus
I
Aldridge.
missed somebody.
LaMarcus
LaMarcus
But if it
Aldridge,
was
that's
if
who
it
I
was this
skipped.
year's team, I might just defer to like the Houston Cougars down the road or something like that. Take
I
the
mean-
best 4 in their starting line.
Take the clearing.
Take a couple of the walk-ons.
Yeah, Kevin Durant and 3 walk-ons, I think.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the tournament, he'll go on whoever's winning. And just see him on UConn.
Yeah, you're just going to
If
switch
you
sides,
want.
just trade jerseys real
See him on
quick.
UConn halfway through the tournament.
I think, honestly, the best team that Texas would send would be, like you said, Tucker, Durant, Aldridge, and then you got to have the emotional support, Andrew Jones. So, Jeff, you're getting the 2 points. Do we have time for one more?
Let's do it.
Do we have time for one more rapid fire?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yes.
We're doing it.
Is it
Fouls are a
fine
big
for
issue
me?
in the NBA playoffs right now. What's a foul and what isn't?
Okay.
What's defined as landing space? Some teams try to draw fouls more than others to get an advantage. I'm looking at you, Houston. So if you see a team like Houston trying to draw fouls as opposed to simply score, how would you change the way that you played against that team?
Oh, how would I change the way I played?
Against a team like
Oh, I thought maybe you
Houston.
were going to ask like, how would I be the official, and I just would
Yeah.
never call a foul.
Yeah.
Fair enough, you could do that too.
Yeah.
I think the Utah Jazz had a good idea when they were playing the defense against the defense against James Harden, where you just stand behind him. Can't foul
let
him.
him go.
Can't foul him if you just don't get near him. Either do that or lay down. Just pull out some blankets. Just
Play
lay
the
down.
Matador defense.
Yeah. just-
Jordan, Jeff,
I was going to say just bring some snacks and sit out of the way.
sit and watch.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm the Rockets at this point, I'm just going to accept that I'm going to lose, enjoy sleeping in my own bed, and get swept, and I'll go with Jordan's point too. We'll bring some snacks, and we'll hang out, and we'll just watch Kevin Durant be the greatest basketball player on the planet right now.
Yeah, just sit and enjoy the show. Jordan, you're getting the 2 points, but Jeff, you finished with 11, Jordan with 10, Sean with 8. We don't have time for FaceTime right now. We will do it on Facebook Live after the show. So that's all the time that we have for tonight.
You know, it's better than Whataburger. That's my face. That's your face down.
Congratulations to our winner, Jeff Barker. Make sure to tune into our sister show, College Press Box,
You're
on
so
Mondays
wrong.
at 9:30 p.m. And be sure to join us again next Wednesday at 9 for College Crossfire Senior Show, where we meet all of TSTV Sports seniors one last time. Don't forget to follow at TSTV Sports on social media. And for all the panelists and everyone in studio and Master Control, I'm Jonathan Polasic. Have a wonderful evening. Welcome back to College Crossfire. Let's remind everybody of the score. We've got Jordan and Jeff tied at 7, and Sean bringing up the rear with 5. So the NFL draft is now behind us, and Texas had 2 players taken in this year's edition. Charles Omenihu was selected by the Texans in the 5th round, and the Vikings selected Chris Boyd in the 7th. But the bigger storyline is the lack of Longhorns taken. Guys like Lil Jordan Humphrey, Gary Johnson, and even Devontae Davis were all thought to maybe have been late-round picks, Humphrey and Johnson especially. So were you guys surprised by the lack of Texas players taken in this year's draft? Start with Jordan.
Not really. I don't know. Besides Charles Omenihu, I just didn't really have. There wasn't much buzz. There wasn't really even that much buzz around Omenihu. There just wasn't much buzz around any guy. I don't think that anybody. Like Gary had the second fastest time for a linebacker at the combine, which is impressive. But I just don't think anybody had an impressive enough combine or pro day to draw enough attention from teams to get drafted.
Yeah, guys like Gary Johnson, a little bit undersized for the NFL, so maybe that hurt his stock a little bit.
And I think the little Jordan Humphrey thing, that didn't surprise me just because the 40 time, that was such a big sticking point too. Like, if you'd listen to people, they said if he could speed up on his 40, then, you know, his draft stock increases, and he didn't get any faster. So I don't know why anybody expected.
Yeah, so that was just a major problem for Humphrey overall. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, again, not surprised by the sheer lack of Longhorns taken in number with only 2 of them going. But I was surprised that HOU didn't go in maybe the 3rd or the 4th round. I mean, that part of the 5th round shocked me a little bit. And then I was surprised. I mean, Chris Boyd in the 7th round, cool. He gets to reunite with Holton Hill and all that. That's an awesome story. But 7th round picks are hardly guaranteed to make the roster. So, yeah, I mean, I think the one that really surprised me was that Gary Johnson didn't get locked down by somebody in the draft. Because you mentioned undersized, but I think for today's day and age where they're not playing inside the tackle box as much, you're spreading it out, and you need guys to, well, he plays on the Chiefs now, but you need guys to chase Patrick Mahomes around and guys like that, and Kyler Murray now. I think he's a really good professional linebacker. I mean, I think if he can keep his head on straight, he has a really good shot to do some big things in the NFL and stick on, kind of like a Holton Hill or Poona Ford did. And then little Jordan Humphrey doesn't surprise me either, like Jordan alluded to. I mean, his combine was terrible. I know the 40s may be a little overhyped, but when you're a receiver, you got to run better than it was 4.7 something. And then not catching patterns at pro day, and we don't want to see you stock block it.
Yeah, just had too many things working against him. But Gary Johnson, the Chiefs might have gotten a steal by picking him up as an undrafted free agent. I mean, only time will tell, but it looks like it could be a really good pickup.
Yeah, he's the one I think could stick on out of the undrafted guys.
Sean,
yeah, and especially, you know, Breckenhager didn't have a good chance of getting drafted, but then when Chase Winovich went to the Patriots, the Patriots are the only team that are going to draft Breckenhager just based off of some tendencies. But once he did, he didn't have a chance. And like you said, the biggest surprise was that not that only 2 guys were drafted, but Charles had to wait until the 5th round to get picked. And all these guys are Charlie Strong's recruits, and it just reminded me of when he said that, you know, he
Bake the cake.
Bake the cake, and Tom Herman's going to put on icing. I mean, this team went
Cake's
10-4. This team went 10-4. There's some good icing. I mean,
pretty good if you ask me. A little bit of sugar on top, maybe.
Oh yeah.
But
Just scoop the icing off the cake.
just
Yeah.
eat the icing. Just eat the icing. I mean, I have to agree with you, Jeff. I think seeing HOU fall all the way to the 5th round, I mean, there were projections that he could even be a late 2nd round pick overall. So to see him fall and to see him go to the Texans where he grew up or where he was born, the Texans might have a really good player on their hands if Romeo Crennel can mold him into the type of player that he needs him to be.
And to learn from J.J. Watt.
Exactly, that too. Yeah. That never hurts.
Yeah. So I got 10 points for that answer?
No, you just get the 1. We just get the 1. Just 1 point for these questions now.
You're playing to the refs. the whole
What
time.
are you doing?
Moving on, the NFL draft is always an exciting time because it's the time of year where teams can add young, cheap talent and head into the season with big expectations. But sometimes teams can either hit the lottery with their draft picks or teams can mess up enough to set the organization back a year or 2. But let's talk about teams that did well with their picks this year. The Cardinals believe they have their man with Kyler Murray, and the 49ers added a ferocious pass rusher in Nick Bosa. But which team do you think won this year's draft? Start with Jeff.
I really like what the Washington Redskins did, and I know we were talking earlier off camera that, you know,
You got the Giants fans booing you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a
Or
Cowboys
what, you
fan,
thought
but
we were
I
gonna
was-
say
I
the
don't,
Giants?
you said the Giants fans are booing me. I don't necessarily think that Daniel Jones is going to be terrible. And honestly, I'm a Raiders fan. They picked Cleveland Farrell at 4, and everyone's freaking out about that's a reach. If these guys end up being solid, nobody will ever care. You know, talk about whether he was drafted at 6 or 17. But anyway, Redskins didn't have to kind of reach like we were talking about with the Giants and some teams like that. They were patient. They got the guy that they wanted, not only the position that they wanted to address, and then to get Montez Sweat, who's, you know, they talked about him maybe going top 10 in some of these mock drafts at some point in the process. I think that was a great draft overall for the Redskins.
Yeah, the Redskins did really well, did their homework. Like you said, got the guys that they wanted.
Patient, too.
And like you said, didn't reach.
Yeah,
Sean?
they waited for the teams to mess up all the picks
Yeah.
and let the good players fall to them. It's always a good strategy. I'm going to go with the team that didn't have a first-round pick. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns because they basically traded their 17th overall pick for Odell Beckham. That's a good pick. That's basically what you want out of your first rounder. And then in the second round, they get Greedy Williams, a guy who's supposed to go in the first round. You know, a lot of people thought he was one of the best corners in the draft. And they filled out the defense with Redwine from Miami, the safety, and then Sion Takitaki from
some great names.
linebacker from BYU.
Just on names alone.
Yeah,
though,
that's a
I'd
heck of
want
a
to-
roster.
That's why
American
I went
names.
down the third and fourth round picks. I can't help myself.
Yeah.
Taki? You kidding me?
Yeah, so the Browns, they definitely did some good things with the fact that they, like you said, didn't have the first round pick, which was effectively Odell, but adding some depth to a very young but also very talented team. Jordan?
Well, my initial answer when I found out this was going to be a question is that the Cowboys fans won because the Giants did something probably ridiculous. So Cowboys fans.
There's a lot of Giants.
I
Yeah, I
know,
don't know. I
there's
don't
like
understand. I
an
really don't.
inordinate amount of Giants
Daniel
fans
Jones'
in here.
family. Is
I'm sorry about your cousin. He seems like a nice guy. But then Jeff and I were talking about this, and we went with the same answer. Mine's based more on the drafting Dwayne Haskins because if you look at the quarterbacks on that team and Colt McCoy, but those are
He
all
might be on the way out.
those are all
He'll be
older
on the
guys.
next
They're all
alumni
over
show.
30 years old. So they're to the point where I think he's going to learn from. They're good quarterbacks though, so Haskins is going to be able to learn from some good quarterbacks. But they're not counting on him to come in and do anything immediately unless a freak injury situation happens like last season. But it pains me to say the Redskins.
Yeah, I mean, they give Haskins the opportunity to sit back, learn for a year, maybe two, if they can squeeze out a year, 2 years from McCoy, Smith, or whoever comes in.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum, exactly. Be a little stopgap there, but I think I have to agree with you, Jordan. I think just on the fact that they drafted Dwayne Haskins and didn't get stuck with any other quarterbacks coming out of the draft this year, you're getting the point.
Play off Daniel Jones.
So we're moving
He's a
on.
nice guy. Probably, I don't know.
We're moving on. The Western Conference semifinals currently sees the Golden State Warriors up on the Houston Rockets 2-0. But ask any Houston fan, and they'll probably tell you that the series should be 1-1 at least. That's mainly due to the officiating in Game 1. Houston's biggest complaint was the number of fouls not called on multiple three-point attempts that could have seen Houston win big. The NBA acknowledged some missed calls from Game 1, but that means very little now. So do you think that the Rockets were robbed of a Game 1 victory over the Warriors, or maybe not? Start with Sean.
Robbed is a strong word to use, I think. Robbed is a lot. They definitely, there's some missed calls in the first half, but you can't lose a game because of some missed calls in the first half because you have an entire second half to play. I think the call or the kind of non-call against Draymond Green at the end with Harden shooting, that was Harden looking for a foul and didn't get one. I don't think that was egregious at all. The last 2-minute report said that Steph Curry should have fouled out again, but that was late in the game already. None of these they got robbed. Sure, there were some officiating mistakes. They just did not get robbed.
Yeah, the officiating mistakes are going to happen, and sometimes it just comes down to making shots. Can you make shots? They didn't.
Crazy game.
Exactly. Ball goes in the bucket, you score points.
Put
Who
the
knew?
ball in the basket.
Yeah.
Who knew? Jordan?
So I already said I'm pretty much going to concede this answer because most of my NBA consumption is from Twitter. Because once the Mavs season
So it's
ended,
very rational.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. I no hot takes. But since the Mavs season ended, I pretty much haven't watched an NBA game, so I kind of just keep up on Twitter and stuff. And I love you, Dirk.
So there we go. We got a Dirk shout out.
I was like, where are we going with
That's
this?
where I was going.
We
I
got
said
a
that's all I
Dirk
was
shout-out.
gonna do.
Getting choked up. Voice is cracking a little bit.
Jeff, what do you think?
No, I mean this is absurd. And then to bring the Game
really
7
like
last year
absurd.
in the memo that leaked, where they're talking about Game 7, they were robbed because of the calls and all that.
Well,
you know, maybe you shouldn't miss 27 straight 3-pointers. Maybe that had something to do with it. But in this Game 1, no. I mean, I thought the officiating was poor, and this whole landing spot idea. I mean, there's some gray area in there because obviously, guys are going to be. Sometimes your momentum's going to take you forward. Every guy shoots different. Every shot is different. Sometimes you're pulling up and you may go forward. You're fading away. You may go back. But I think they need to fix that in the offseason because there's a ton of gray area. But where there wasn't gray area was James Harden kicking his feet out at the end and trying to draw the foul.
Oh, yeah, no.
So
As a Rockets fan myself,
Yeah.
the foul on Draymond, not a foul. I agree with that.
And they should worry more about stopping Kevin Durant.
Yeah, that's been a problem
Maybe get a
for a
rebound
lot
or
of
two.
teams.
Yeah, exactly. Get it.
Rebounds, boxing
Get a
out.
board.
I didn't know the refs were out there
Turnovers,
boxing
yeah.
out.
Turnovers, I don't know. But I have to agree with you, Jeff and Sean. Rocks, they weren't robbed. They just got to play better, and they got to make shots. Oh, there was a flop. Steve Kerr?
Hey, he
I didn't know
deserves
Steve
a
Kerr
point
was
for
here.
that.
So, Jeff and Sean, you're each getting a point. Great debate, guys. That's it for now. We've got Rapid Fire up next. Stick around.